it has a curriculum that's prescribed by the College Board, we're able to do a lot of really great lab activities. So students will collect and analyze laboratory data using their iPad. We use the Vernier LabQuest 2. We use a lot of sensors. And then there's an app we use called Vernier Graphical Analysis. They also have a really great video analysis lab, which means the kids can be really anywhere doing data analysis. They can be videotaping things and then doing their analysis of the motion that they see. The nice thing about the LabQuest 2 is it connects wirelessly to the iPad. The nice thing about this approach is that data collection no longer is restricted to the laboratory. The students can be really anywhere in the school collecting data. They can be really anywhere outside collecting data. And they can also, in terms of writing their digital lab report, can include pictures and videos of their laboratory setup. This is really good for when they do error analysis and when I'm looking at their error analysis, because the way they describe in words how they've set up their lab equipment a lot of times is different than how they've actually set it up. So that's a big help for me as a teacher. But the nice thing is that all their data and all their analysis and their lab report are in, it's all in one place for me. So I've had students write their lab reports digitally in atmospheric science as well. So one of the questions that they focused on recently was, how does the relative humidity and dew point vary within the school and within the neighborhood? So they used Google Earth on the iPad to locate appropriate sensing locations in the neighborhood, and I gave them some parameters about how far away from the school that they could go. And then I gave them a LabQuest 2, a temperature probe, and a relative humidity probe, and they went out within the school and they went out around the school and they collected their data. Once they had collected their data, they collected relative humidity and temperature data. They needed the dew point, so there was an app called Dew Point Calculator where they were actually able to do that. So again, all their learning was taking place on one device. All their data analysis was taking on one device. And the reporting all took place on one device. So again, I apologize for the next wonky picture. So using Pages on the iPad, they wrote their lab report. They were required to include pictures of their lab group. And in terms of their data analysis, they included pictures of their data collection sites. They used the iPad to take pictures for that. They used numbers on the iPad to create their data tables. The nice thing about numbers is that they can do some really, they can do some basic data analysis. If I want them to do more specific data analysis, I usually have them use the Vernier Graphical Analysis tool. But then the challenge was then how do they represent their spatial data, because they were going around the neighborhood collecting data, and you can't plot that on a graph, and then trying to plot it on a table. It's nice, but then you don't see the spatial variation. So in the right-hand column at the top, they used an app called Skitch, and Skitch is great because you can pull a Google map in and then have the students plot the data on the map. So when they put their lab report together, it included pictures of where they had collected their data. It collected data tables. It included a visual map of their data. And then we didn't include videos of this, but the student lab abstracts and conclusions were videos. So instead of having them write something out as a, answers to questions, I had them use the iPad to record their lab conclusions. So I asked the students what they thought about it. Some of them had to get over the initial fear of being on camera, which they always seem to do. But they said they really liked being able to do their lab conclusions with a video instead. I found that when I have them do a video, that their conclusions are much more focused on details. They're much more concise. And part of that goes with the amount of memory that are on the iPads that they can't do a 10-minute video, or they could. But we want it to be smaller. But I also found that their abstracts and conclusions were much more thoroughly presented to me. So for the next lab report that they do, which they're actually going to do tomorrow, the students are then going to peer review each other's conclusions, so they'll be able to look at each other's videos and see what the strengths and weaknesses are of their peers' lab reports.